Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, VC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you for having me on.
Kris, the SNC-Lavalin scandal, we don't know how much taxpayers' money might have gone into bribery and so on. But what about a company that has relied on bribery in the past to get deals in Africa, to get deals in Quebec? Are they a company that the Canadian government should be doing business with?
You know, this is a great question, and it's one of those tough issues where if you have a huge international company that works all around the world, they're going to wind up having to do some business in places that are falling apart, as was in the case of Libya, that have different laws. But with Canada, what's really interesting is, generally speaking, if you as an individual, or technically, as it should be, as a corporation, go overseas and break the law as it would be interpreted in Canada, you can still be held accountable here in Canada. And so the idea is that you just can't go off around the world and do what you want and not face repercussions here. What's interesting about this case is that the justice system, the criminal code, was changed in order to allow for these deferred prosecution agreements, these DPAs that people keep mentioning. And what the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is trying to point out, and we have a lot of people who've worked in law and who are trained lawyers on our team, they're pointing out that, you know, if we hadn't changed this law to allow for deferred prosecution agreements for corporations to get out of jail free, quote unquote, we wouldn't be in this situation. And what one of my colleagues likened it to, they said it's kind of like this. Say you go and rob a bank, and you did it. You've got the money in your hand, and you're caught. Now, this is very similar to going back up to the Crown and saying, listen, I know I did it, and I know I got caught. How about I give all the money back, and we just walk away from this? I'll say I'm sorry, and I'll give you back the money, but we don't proceed with prosecution. That's what I've heard it likened to. And a lot of Canadians may not have realized that these laws changed very recently. And the catch here is that they were changed under what's called Omnibus legislation. And what they did is they made this change, and they put it in the budget bill. Usually the budget bill is supposed to be just the budget. It's a massive document dealing with billions of dollars and where it's supposed to go. But apparently they made this change to the law dealing with this and shoved it inside the budget bill to get it passed through. And what that results in is it doesn't get debated, it doesn't get dissected, and it doesn't get discussed the way that a singular legislative piece would be discussed. And so now we've got this change, and now we're in this huge circus that we're seeing coming out of Ottawa. So we've actually got a petition right now saying we need to get rid of omnibus legislation for everybody's benefit, for Canada's benefit, for corporations' benefit, and so we don't wind up in a situation like this again. I've likened it to a Trojan horse. You know, you get this thing wheeled up to and you think that it's just a horse, but inside of it, of course, could be something that could spell your demise. The thing with omnibus legislation is that it means that you don't get the thorough scrutiny and the airing that it needs to have. And so that's why we think it's a good idea to just deal with legislation on a case-by-case basis, quit lumping this stuff together, and we might not be dealing with messes like we're seeing now.
Well, the Harper government was notorious for omnibus bills, and Trudeau said he would end that. And yet, here it is again. He promised he would do government different, that it would be transparent, it would be honest, that you could trust his word, that everything would be on the up and up, and no need to worry about backroom deals or anything like that. And this whole thing turns out to be some kind of gigantic backroom deal that somehow backfired.
And the irony is just biting, isn't it? And there's so many, recordings of him. And politicians do this, I'm not picking on him in particular, but there's so many recordings of him during the election saying he wouldn't use omnibus legislation. Just like you say, he said it over and over again. He'd get rid of using omnibus legislation. And the Harper government was rightly criticized for using omnibus legislation because it winds up with a lack of examination and transparency. And so here we are. It's interesting that this is the biggest scandal ever to hit his government by a country mile. And it's because they put through a piece of omnibus legislation exactly as they said they weren't going to. And what's really interesting, I find, from a policy perspective, is how this is showing rifts within the governing Liberal Party. And now people are basically having to choose who to believe. Do they believe the former Attorney General and Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould, who is a Liberal, yes, but not from the same cut of cloth as the Liberals say back east, say from the Montreal, Windsor, Quebec corridor. She's from the West Coast. She's from here in BC, and she's got a law background, and her dad has a law background. And so they come from a different sort of place within the Liberal tent. And so that's really interesting to see this division now. And also to see Jane Philpott, another minister of distinction, decide to leave her post. So I'm curious, as an analyst now, to see what happens as we lead up to the next election. Are they going to be able to get their stability back before the writ drops again?
And of course, you're trying to look after taxpayers' money in your position. Does this mean we're worried that any SNC project could have been tainted and somehow some of that money leaked into the wrong hands for the wrong reasons? And
this is the sort of thing that we would hope would come out in any current or future prosecutions or court cases. And we need to be clear. I mean, it's a major company. It's a real big player, and it has real big players here in BC. They're a huge construction company. And of course, they have thousands of people that would have had nothing to do with any of these alleged wrongdoings that happened overseas, again, allegedly. So people need to be careful, and they need to be cautious about what kind of language they're using. But again, I think the politics of this, it didn't have to be so messy. If they would have simply dealt with these laws and these proposed changes on a case-by-case basis, then maybe they would have made different decisions and people would have written the laws a little bit better. They keep saying things like this brings us in line with other jurisdictions in other countries that we're very similar to, these deferred prosecution agreements. Well, if that's the case, then have the courage to put it out there on its own and have all of your legal experts across Canada dissect it and make it as best as they can and word it as best they can so you don't wind up with this kind of stuff. Because clearly the Attorney General in this case disagreed and disagreed very vehemently, apparently dozens of times. And now we've got this crisis that has hit the federal government. And we're also concerned, again, with the idea that jobs matter. We agree. But what we're curious about, it's another one of our major campaigns, is that we're trying to get the Trans Mountain Pipeline twinned that runs from Edmonton out to Burnaby. And all of Western Canada is basically screening for help for the energy sector, where that wouldn't require legal changes. It would simply require, an hour's worth of work for the federal government to get off their backsides and declare paramountcy and get that thing twinned. But yet now, because it's SNC-Lavalin, or because they're talking about something back east, it's all of a sudden all about the jobs. And they can't even quantify where their number of 8,000 jobs is coming from. This is where things get really fishy, and that's where people really start losing trust, because different regions of the country, including here in Western Canada, and including in places like the manufacturing sector of Ontario, will rightly be sitting up and going, huh? You care about jobs now? So much so that you go through all of this? We're really looking for answers here.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, Recycling Trade Publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, Doug McCallum, the mayor of Surrey, says there's no need to have public consultation on his plan to turn the RCMP that runs his town right now or city into a municipal police force. He says the public consultations were done when I was running my election campaign and said that's what I was going to do. Well, isn't that an excuse any politician could use for anything they ever mentioned during an election campaign? No need for public consultation?
And see, this is where you wind up with problems, is because, and I'm not picking on him in particular, but if you say I was elected to do a mandate, this is my mandate, well, yes and no. I think that the general sentiment can be behind certain things. So, for example, Doug Ford saying I don't want the carbon tax and I want to cut your hydro bills. Those are pretty widely understood things that people have been suffering under now for years and years in Ontario. So I think it's fair to say in that example that most Ontarians, the majority, voted against those two things and for Doug Ford. However, in a case of a municipal election, there's far less attention being paid to it, far lower voter turnout, and a much shorter writ period. And so the discussions don't happen as fulsomely, I would say. And so when you're dealing with something like a big change between the RCMP and municipal police force, I don't really see the harm in asking people what they think. I don't see the harm in having public consultation, and they can do it within the city budget. This notion that every time you need to go out and consult with people, you need to somehow back up the money truck and dump it everywhere, that's not necessary. You literally have email, phone call channels at City Hall. You have public forums, like there's a big building there with a big meeting room and microphones and recording equipment and seating. You know, you can easily say we're holding, 4 to 6 sessions of the evening for people to come in and to voice their concerns or their support or their insights about this. This is not rocket science. It would be very simple to have public consultation without incurred extra cost to the taxpayer, and without it dragging on forever. There's a very nice and clear way of doing this. People consult with each other at the city level all the time. And if you're dealing with something as really up close and personal and meaningful as policing, and that's whether it's RCMP out on the beat and the men and women doing their job, or a municipal police force and what that would look like, then yeah, it just seems like it would make sense that you'd want to consult the community on that. So I would expect that he'd probably change his mind.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, there's talk of a possible national pharmacare program that would look after essential or the most commonly prescribed drugs for people. What's your thoughts on that?
It's something that we wouldn't reject right away. The CTF has considered this now for quite a while. Our concern always is severalfold. One, of course, is always where's this money going to come from? Taxpayers right now pay around 40% of their income into various levels of taxation from various levels of government, in fees and tolls, levies, you name it. And with an aging population relying more and more on the healthcare system, the idea of all taxpayers being responsible now for all medicines or a pharmacare plan, that can sound expensive. However, if they want to do things in a smart way so that they're somehow getting into lower cost bulk buying in order to provide it to people who need it, that's something that could make sense so long as they went about it the right way. Our concern, though, always is when government gets involved, they can often muddy up the waters, they can slow things down, they can dampen research, they can hinder innovation, because it's such a big, bulky thing, government getting involved. And so we'd be very cautious approaching this. And I think, actually, from what I've been hearing from the folks I still know in Ottawa, apparently a lot of these reports weren't even ready yet. The idea of a national pharmacare program plan, that plan wasn't really even ready yet. It's apparently half cooked. And of course, I think we all know why the federal government is so frantic to change the channel right now. And that's why they're throwing everything out there to try to distract people. We of course saw the announcement for pardons for simple possession of cannabis going through. They literally announced that Canada was having a hand in going to the moon the last time we had one of these testimonials at the Justice Committee, and now we're hearing a pharmacare plan being wheeled out. So we're a little bit cynical about the timing. I think it's a little bit too early for them to be talking about this. But again, if they were able to do this in a market-based way where people still had their choices for their medicine and they weren't rationing it out and they weren't dampening research and they weren't costing us an arm and a leg, then sure, that's something that they could consider doing, as long as it made sense and it was cost-effective. But we're really worried about this idea of a one-size-fits-all government behemoth getting involved, because it would just make things worse.
Perhaps Ottawa should assist the provinces in buying their drugs. In Saskatchewan, for example, your prescription is just the dispensing fee. That's it.
Yeah, see, and that's if that makes sense and that is affordable for people, and we're still able to have new research and new drugs being invented, that sounds fine. Anything that makes common sense is something that we usually will get behind. But unfortunately, as we've seen in the case provincially here with ICBC, when you get government involved and monopolies involved, then things just bog right down and get bloody expensive. And so we wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. But yeah, you're right. If they work more closely, say, with the provinces that are more close to the ground, because they're the ones that are delivering the health care, or supposed to be, then that's something that could still make sense.
Kris, thank you so much for being on the Goddard Report.
Thank you so much for caring so much about BC issues.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. If you'd like to contact her, you can email her at ksims@taxpayer.com. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.